Though I found it a bit more challenging than I expected, and constantly ended up getting lost in a world that's a bit deeper than it is high, Venture to the Vile had me tethered to its gorgeous world, awesome characters, and exploration that seemed to never end. Hey there, I'm CGDannyB, and you're watching my review of Venture to the Vile on PC. Real quick before we get going, I want to give a huge shout out to Studio Cut to Bits and PlayerTwo PR for providing me an early copy of the game so I could review it for you today. And one more thing, if you could do me a huge favor and like the video, it would genuinely help me continue to do this silly, goofy content creation thing that I'm working on. Plus, I heard if you don't, this nasty, gross creature is going to crawl out from under your bed and genetically modify your body. I can't say that I know in what way that'll unfold, but unless you're willing to take the risk, I just like the video and call it a day. Now, let's talk about Venture to the Vile. Our story begins with you, the protagonist, going about your fairly regular life in a small town. A town where everyone wears some cool looking masks and sadly, has some sort of issue they need figured out. Growing up, you're often the odd kid out, always being bullied and made fun of. But thankfully, your childhood best friend Ella's got your back. Flash forward a few years and you and Ella are all grown up, and it seems like you're in this will they, won't they type of scenario. Until one unfortunate day, you and Ella are separated, and now you're lost in a world infested with this nasty stuff called the Vile. And now it's up to you to help people around town, if you feel like it, defeat some big nasty foes, and find your long lost friend once again. One of the major drawing points for Venture to the Vile is its art style. Each area that you explore is filled with highly detailed yet stylized environments, from lush forests and serene rivers to crumbling mine shafts and dilapidated mansions. The world of Venture to the Vile is stunning and always has something gorgeous for you to look at. Now, my only real complaint with this is that sometimes when the world looks this gorgeous, it's hard to differentiate what's accessible terrain and what's the edge of the world. I can think of two major examples where I found myself lost in a section of the world where I genuinely thought I'd soft-locked myself or I was coming to an area too soon. So I would backtrack, go a different direction, get a new upgrade, and come back to where I was lost in the first place. Then use that upgrade to find out that it was just to get a collectible. Then it would meticulously trace every edge of the area to find out that the edge of the world wasn't actually an edge. And if I had just jumped past it, I would have found the boss I was looking for and beaten them probably hours ago. Now I do gotta chalk it up that about 50% of my issue is probably user error. But damn, if the game didn't look so good, I'd probably beaten this game a lot faster. Now, hindsight being 2020, these areas seemed a lot easier to find than I made them out to be. But it still would have been nice to have some additional signposting or direction, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in the gameplay section. Aside from the world itself, the characters of Venture to the Vile are all very gritty, yet charming. While exploring Rainybrook and meeting each and every new NPC, I constantly made these comparisons to the beloved Tim Burton art style, for movies such as The Corpse Bride, Frankenweenie, and Nine. Now, I'm not a Tim Burton fan like that, but I can recognize and appreciate the art style. But if you're over there cheesing out the idea of some Timmy B styled artwork, then we've got a game that you gotta take a peek at. Once you're set loose in the world of Venture to the Vile, you'll start to really see how crazy the Vile truly is. One of the first things that you'll see is your body starts to take on new forms. For example, your primary weapon for combat is this cool needle blade, whatever you want to call it type deal coming out of your arm. As you make your way past each boss of the story, you unlock new upgrades, or mutations, that'll help you with traversal in combat. Early on in the game, I sort of realized that combat could be a bit weird at times, because very often the enemies are a lot faster than you can handle with how hefty the controls are. I would consistently feel like my inputs were just being outpaced by the attacks of each major enemy that I was dealing with, especially that damn grasshopper. That grasshopper. I don't know if this was intentional or not to sort of build that survival of the fittest mindset, but it took me a bit to adjust and sort of read the steps of my enemies before their attacks. Or just tank it and dish out a butt ton of damage before they could kill me first. However, that was often easier said than done, because a few of these bosses really put me in my place. I can't say that their encounters were the most original thing that I've ever seen, but I thoroughly enjoyed fighting each and every one of them. Learning their patterns, adapting to their movesets, and ultimately defeating them so I could unlock a new ability, to then immediately recall a location where I knew this would come in handy, then head back there to explore some new places. At its core, Venture to the Vile is a Metroidvania, but it takes a lot of creative liberties with the genre that, all in all, I greatly appreciated. That being said, some of those choices could definitely use some fine-tuning to make the game that much more enjoyable. So what Venture to the Vile does that makes it stand out from other Metroidvanias is that its world exists on multiple planes of depth. So you may enter the new area in the foreground, but the zone will have additional layers where you have to travel forward and backwards to fully explore each part of the map and progress through the story. I really enjoyed this take on the level design because it mixed up the typical flow of exploration that most games in the genre tend to have. But like I alluded to before, I still have some critiques about it. A less severe one being that sometimes I just couldn't see certain hazards ahead of me, causing me to take otherwise easily avoidable damage or face a few untimely deaths. Now there's one moment in particular on the ship level where not seeing a hazard ahead of me felt relevant, like it was part of the narrative beat to help me explore a different part of the area. But most of the time, it was some piece of foliage or a rock that just made it so I couldn't see spikes or an enemy in front of me. Now, doubling back real quick to the compliments on the gorgeous world, there are some insanely over-the-top set pieces that made progression feel impactful. Like knocking over a giant water wheel that would unlock a new section of the map gave me this sense of permanence. It was as if my actions created this change in the world that made anyone else in this fictional town able to go where I went. Granted, they probably shouldn't, because I don't think they can fight like I can, but if they're brave enough, sure, go for it. These set pieces made the world feel gigantic, like I was watching a giant kaiju fight while a dope-ass action scene was taking place right behind it. Venture to the Vile made what's a decently sized world feel that much bigger with the grand scale events that took place within it. Now, sorry, but here comes another but this may coincide with my biggest issue with Venture to the Vile, the lack of a minimap. Let's take it back to another Metroidvania that I talked about earlier this year, Ultros. If you need to figure out which direction you're going, what room you need to hit up to save, etc., you can easily pull up a map and boom, you know where you're going. This can be found in nearly any Metroidvania, Tales of Gonzarazao, Hollow Knight, Islets, Animal, the list goes on. Now, Venture to the Vile certainly has a map, and here it is. This is it. This is the most map you're getting. So the map does show small sections of pathways and sewer entrances for fast traveling, but that's it. No tents for healing, no NPCs, nothing. You get this big overworld map that's great for deciding where you want to go next, but not enough for discerning how exactly to get there. And this will take me back to the layers of exploration. Each section of the map can be 5, 6, 7 layers deep, and I can't find where the entrances are, where to heal, where to jump across the river, anything like that. And it can be pretty frustrating. I mentioned earlier on that I got lost a lot. And I'll admit, more often than not, it's that young indie gaming creator in me trying to beat a game before embargo and getting a little overwhelmed, thus making dumb decisions. But I can't help but imagine if I had a map that showed me just how deep each individual area was, how much more comfortable I would have been with exploration throughout my 10-ish hours of gameplay. Honestly, it probably would have been a bit shorter with that kind of map. So if the studio came to me and said, what's one thing you want in a major update or a sequel? It's the map. The mini-map must be a thing. Please and thank you. However, with all that being said, being lost in the world of Venture to the Vile, both figuratively and literally, has been a great time for me. Sure, frustration hit me more than I think I would have liked it to. But all the other moments were the culmination of fun and exciting events that kept me from wanting to call it a night to ultimately power through for a couple more hours. I just wanted to go deeper and deeper into the Vile without ever having to stop. A few Steam Next Fest ago, I pulled out my Steam Deck and played the demo for Venture to the Vile, a game I've been following on TikTok and would probably consider looking more into when it was released. But after playing that demo, getting to step into the world of Rainybrook and experience what this game was going to eventually be, it immediately became a blip on my radar for the upcoming year. Venture to the Vile was a unique experience filled with challenge, whether that be intentional or not. However, there were multiple evenings of wanting to wind down and call it a night, but I just wanted to see one more thing, or fight one more boss, or upgrade one more mutation. So even with my critiques and criticisms that I had about the game, I just never wanted to put Venture to the Vile down. Not until I rolled credits and defeated, or succumbed, to the Vile. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of Venture to the Vile. If you're interested in picking up the game for yourself, it's available on Steam right now, and there's also a demo if you want to test it out first. And once again, huge shout out to the team for sending me an early copy of the game. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's next for Studio Cut to Bits. Now, if you aren't quite done listening to me talk about Venture to the Vile, you can check out my other video that I posted a few days ago, where I unboxed the press kit that I got with a bunch of dope goodies from Venture to the Vile. And of course, if you want to stick around and hear me talk about a bunch of dope indie games, be sure to subscribe for some more indie gaming goodness. And I'll see you guys in the next one.